Well, primary season is officially over, and election deniers handpicked by former President Donald Trump dominated a lot of Republican races. 22 nominees for governor, 11 nominees for Secretary of State, and 19 nominees for the Senate either rejected or cast doubt on the 2020 election results. CNN politics reporter and editor-at-large Chris Cillizza says that might not be the greatest news for Republicans on Election Day coming up. He joins us now to break it all down. All right, so the New Hampshire primary was a bit of a curious one, right? A month ago, you had the now Republican nominee for the Senate being a diehard election denier, telling everyone that Trump was robbed. Now, he's singing a very different tune.
It's remarkable.
It's shameless.
It really is. That's a good word for it. August 14th, there was a Republican primary debate in New Hampshire. Don Baldock, the nominee who you referenced, says out and out, look, I believe Donald Trump won this election. No equivocation, no nothing. Then Don Baldock, nominee, he wins the nomination on Tuesday. I think we have sound. Let's play what he said after he became the Republican nominee, roughly 1 month later.
I signed a letter with 120 other generals and admirals saying that Trump won the election, and damn it, I stand by my election.
I have come to the conclusion, and I want to be definitive on this. The election was not stolen. Was there fraud? Yes. President Biden is the legitimate president of this country.
So the remarkable thing is what he said in the longer clip is he said, I conducted my own independent investigation, and I've just now reached the conclusion, which very conveniently happened after he won the Republican primary, that in fact Joe Biden did win. This is a position that we've seen other Republicans make. Blake Masters in Arizona is one example, sort of trying to walk back some of the positions that they took in a primary, but we haven't seen it this quickly after taking the position, Pam. I think it speaks to the challenge. Republican candidates, they have to be in the election denial camp to win Republican primaries, but then in general elections, that position doesn't fly. Yeah. And so they're having to really, in Baldock's case, having to change on the run.
Right.
And it, anyone who watches those two sound bites can say, that doesn't really fly.
Yeah, like they don't have enough time before the midterms to like slowly start to pivot away
Ease
from it.
Away from their past position.
Because they only have, a couple of months in the case of New Hampshire. All right, so I want to talk about this New York Times poll that came out this week, and it confirmed a Democratic surge over the last few months. Let's take a look at this here. From July to September, Democrats saying the country is on the right track have gone from 27% to 50%. Democrats who say they approve of Biden's job performance has gone up from 70% now to 83%. What do you think this is?
A couple things. One, I think Biden has gotten some wins. He was sort of constantly, the inflation was up, gas prices were up. Those are things people feel, right? When they go to the store, if things cost more, they feel that. If they go fill up gas tank and it's $75, they feel that. That's gone away a little bit. I think.
Well, hold on though, but inflation, gas prices have gone down, but inflation is
still high, but we're not seeing surge. I think the other thing is Donald Trump has reemerged. Donald Trump has become a factor in the election again. I think anytime Donald Trump rears his head, that's good for Joe Biden. Donald Trump is not popular, particularly among the general electorate. So I think that helps.
All right, let's talk about Donald Trump because he is in Ohio to campaign for his candidate there, J.D. Vance. Trump won Ohio in 2016 and 2020, but this year's Senate race is close. Vance leads by just 4 points over Tim Ryan. Could this be a sign that Trump's power among Republicans is diminishing? How should we read into this?
The fact that we're talking about Ohio I'm trying to remember what it was, 52 days, I think, before the election. The fact that we're talking about Ohio speaks to the fact that the electorate isn't as tilted toward Republicans as I think we might have thought it might be. Ohio was a swing state. I remember when I first started covering this in 2000, if you said, what's the swing state in the election, people would say Ohio nationally. It's tilted more towards Republicans of late. Donald Trump carried it twice as a Republican governor. Most of the elected officials in the state at the statewide level are Republicans. This is not a state where a Democrat in a midterm election year, the first term midterm of a Democratic president, this is not a state where a Democratic congressman should be within shouting distance. Why is he? I think that J.D. Vance has been a pretty weak candidate. People know him from Hillbilly Elegy, bestseller. Look, I have a book coming out in next year. I'd love for my book to be a bestseller. I don't begrudge him that. But as a candidate, he hasn't been as sort of able, I think, as Republicans had hoped. This is one of the candidates that Donald Trump endorsed. Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania is one. Herschel Walker in Georgia is one. We have seen those candidates struggle somewhat on the campaign trail. So I think he's let Tim Ryan into the race. The question is, now that it's close, does it stay close? And, you know, Republicans, Mitch McConnell's leadership pack is spending over $20 million in Ohio. That's money he didn't want to have to spend there. It's money he wants to spend in a place like Georgia, you know, in other offensive opportunities, Colorado maybe, where Michael Bennet is up for re-election. So it shouldn't be close. On the numbers on this year, it shouldn't be close. The fact that it is speaks to Tim Ryan's a pretty good candidate. J.D. Vance has struggled as a candidate, and I think the political environment is not as tilted towards Republicans as we might have thought it was 3 months ago.
I want to ask you about this because J.D. Vance is being mocked by his opponent, Tim Ryan, for holding the rally tonight opposite an Ohio State football game. I mean, do attacks like this really work, or are they just silly?
So, well, as a child of the South, you know how big football is. So
basketball, where I'm from, well,
true.
football's big too, but really basketball.
Kentucky's good this year in football.
we're decent.
Here's what I think. A one-off attack like this doesn't necessarily work. It draws a little bit of attention. Yes, you know, holding a rally the same night as an Ohio State football game, but it can work if it feels like it's a piece of a broader argument. What Tim Ryan's trying to say is J.D. Vance isn't really from here. J.D. Vance doesn't get us, right? He said Silicon Valley J.D. Vance. He doesn't get who we are, what we care about, we Ohioans, and that's OSU football. So it can work as part of that broader package. I don't think a lot of voters are going into the ballot box in November and say, well, they did have that Trump rally the night of the OSU Toledo game. You know, I don't think that decides it. But people vote for candidates they feel identify with them, whether it's they identify with their hopes, their fears, their dreams. If you are out of touch or seen as out of touch, as inauthentic, that can be bad in a campaign. So that's what Tim Ryan's going for. Whether it works or not, we'll see. You know, I think J.D. Vance's bet is probably it's worth getting the attention and the Republican base rallying that Donald Trump coming into the state does for him, because it is a Republican tilting state. So if you have a popular Republican president, which Donald Trump still is in the Republican base, it's probably worth the hit he takes.
You probably
we'll
do.
See.
I'm probably going to get a hit for this,
yeah,
but it's worth it.
It's probably
a calculation you have to make. All right, Chris Cillizza, thanks for coming in
Always
on
a
Saturday
pleasure.
night. Great to have you with us.